Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and today I'm ranking all of the comic book films from 2019. Another year, a whole lot more comic book film adaptations added to the lexicon. Yes, this year we ended up with 10, as far as I could count them, theatrically released comic book and or manga adaptations. Now note, I did decide to go with comic book slash manga adaptations rather than superhero films this year. And that's going to include comic book slash manga character adaptation. So that doesn't mean that these films in particular took a storyline from their literature material, but they derive from the page. But also note that does leave glass on the cutting room floors. You will not see that M. Night Shyamalan film here because it was a Shyamalan original concept. But as I said, that still leaves us with 10 films to get into this ranking. So before we head in, just realize this is my own personal ranking of how I enjoyed watching the films. This does not have anything to do with box office, critical reception, other people's audience reception. Nah, this is just my own personal opinion. So just keep that in mind when you're leaving your own ranking in the comment section down below. And let's discuss, let's have a good conversation about this awesome time to be alive as a comic book fan. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and actually get into the ranking, shall we? Coming in at number 10, aka dead last, I have Hellboy. Whew, this was terrible. Spoiler alert, this is the only one of these 10 films that is in contention for my worst films of the year list right now, because I found very little redeeming factors when it came to Hellboy. This was just an ill-conceived, terribly executed reboot. Our cast does what they can, but unfortunately, the material that they're handed is trash. The effects are terrible in this movie because we swapped out most of the awesome practical effects that made the Del Toro Hellboy film so great for CGI like terrors. Woo, some of the concepts they come up with in this movie are legitimately horrifying in CGI in the worst possible ways. Harbor, you tried, you were fine as Hellboy, but yeah, this movie was, well, the worst. That's why it's dead last. Coming in at number 9, I have The Kitchen. Yeah, when you do comic book film adaptations and not superhero films, you get stuff like The Kitchen thrown in. Like The Kitchen thrown in, because this is actually based on a DC comic. So there we go. Now, I liked The Kitchen, certainly more than most other folks did, and that's going to be the case for this entire middle section of the ranking. But I just didn't like it as much as these other 8 films. I think Melissa McCarthy and Tiffany Haddish, as well as Elizabeth Moss, give really strong performances, and the story itself is very interesting. However, I do think it gets bogged down throughout the movie with some of these offshoot side moments, and it lacks a certain oomph to it that really would have pushed it further up the list. But it was a perfectly fine, perfectly suitable run-of-the-mill mobster flick with women running the show this time around. At number 8, I have MIB International. The newest Men in Black film, another reboot slash sequel to, at this point, a long-running franchise. Now, I love Chris Hemsworth, as many of you know, and I love Tessa Thompson, as many of you know. They have great chemistry, and their chemistry together I found to work in this movie. This is another one I think is much better than the general public has given it credit for. It's not great, certainly. There's a lot wrong with this movie, but there's an argument to be made. It's still the second best Men in Black film. The new creature designs are a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the banter back and forth between Hemsworth and Thompson. However, I know a lot of people love that little Pawnee. No, the Pawnee was too much for me. We should have left him behind. The story itself is meh at best, and a lot of the comedy falls flat. But for just a run-of-the-mill Men in Black action sci-fi film, I had a fun time with it. That helps find MIB International in at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is Dark Phoenix. So a little disclaimer here is I am a X-Men fanboy. I know we get lots of DC versus MCU type of battles, and if we're just doing Marvel and DC, I guess this puts me on a side. But my biggest loyalty has always lied with the X-Men, whether it's comic books, animated series, and yeah, I defend most of the films. I'm an apologist, what can I say? Unfortunately, there's a lot that Dark Phoenix just doesn't do very well. And woo, they did my girl Storm wrong, y'all. That was honestly my biggest negative in this film, was the depiction of Storm was so god awful. When they had her making ice cubes, I about like punched the movie screen. I was so annoyed. But in the same scene, we also got Dazzler, and it was magical. I love Dazzler, and I'm so glad she finally got her big screen debut in a really great representation. And I think this is definitely a step up on the Dark Phoenix storyline from The Last Stand. It mixes The Last Stand elements with the actual Dark Phoenix saga, and of course that went to effect. But there is quite a bit of fun to be had, including the entire action set piece on the train. I thought was a blast. Honestly, I think all of the action sets in the film are pretty fun. Narratively, it's definitely hit or miss. It works best when it is trying to aim for the actual Dark Phoenix storyline. But then when it falls back into this like Mystique storyline, it doesn't work at all. For me, it's really up and down. Like, some really fun highs and some really like offensive lows. But that gets you in at number 7, I suppose. Coming in at number 6, I have Alita Battle Angel. I actually enjoyed Alita Battle Angel much more than I had initially anticipated because the trailers looked terrible to me. Now, the big eyes and the CGI Rosa Salazar face, it worked mostly, but it still kind of didn't have good purpose to me. But the rest of the CGI in this movie was amazing on all technical aspects. This film is top notch. Plus, I think Rosa Salazar is fantastic, and they created a great character in Alita, somebody we really rooted for and connected with. And then we have Christoph Waltz, who is another character that is really well developed, and I think his performance does a lot in endearing him to us, the audience. The action in this film is a lot of fun as well. Plus, the story is really intriguing. The world that we're introduced to, the rollerball aspect of it all, worked really well. What I didn't love when it came to Alita, that keeps it from breaking into my top 5, is that it felt like a few different editions of the manga kind of like shoved together for this one script. There was so much going on in here that I wish we would have been able to make multiple films with this story alone. Given more time to the rollerball, maybe given more time to the romance, which was my least favorite main aspect of the film, given more time to her discovering her origins. Because we have people like Jennifer Connelly in this movie who are almost pointless. The rollerball takes a huge back seat to the movie. So there's a lot that I do think the film gets really right, and a lot of it that I do really enjoy. However, when I look at Alita Battle Angel, I see just so much potential for what could have been. At number 5, I have Captain Marvel. Finally, Marvel gives us a female-led theatrical release. And overall, I enjoyed Captain Marvel. Most of all because I know other people didn't. I liked Carol Danvers herself, and I particularly loved her little best friend. I enjoyed this kind of like sassy hero. I really enjoyed her moments in Endgame too. What can I say? I like the attitude. And we've seen it. We've seen the president work well before. Now, I don't think she's as charismatic as Tony Stark to make it work down that route. It was really interesting getting down to the center of her origin story and understanding Carol Danvers as a person. Plus, the Kree storyline was fantastic, and Ben Mendelsohn pretty much steals the show. And that de-aging on Samuel L. Jackson, get out of here. Amazing. I do think that the pacing is off, and we lack a certain level of humanity, maybe, when it comes to Carol, those like smaller human moments. Plus, the soundtrack was shoved into scenes unnecessarily at points. But overall, I think Captain Marvel is a perfectly fine, serviceable origin story for a character that I've really enjoyed to this point. Coming in at number 4, I have Spider-Man Far From Home. Much like Captain Marvel, this is kind of a middle ground, I enjoyed it well enough type of MCU film. I love Tom Holland. This is definitely not a secret at this point. And I really enjoy him as Peter Parker. He has that wonder, he has the fun aspects that I just enjoy out of a Peter Parker. And we finally get like an actual high school feeling Parker. Plus, this film cemented that I love this version of MJ. Zendaya is so good, and as I just said before, I love me some characters with sass and with that little bit of attitude. In a lot of ways, I basically am Zendaya's MJ, so I loved her. And Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio is amazing. Mysterio as a character was done so well, and Jake Gyllenhaal just really brought him to life, and I loved it. However, the film at large just felt disjointed to me. This is a problem I've actually had with both of the solo Spider-Man films in the MCU so far, as I think they're struggling with this character on how to fit him into the bigger universe, but also give us that like John Hughes style high school film. Homecoming, I thought, worked best as a John Hughes style homecoming type movie. This one, though, definitely takes flight as a superhero movie. When you have such a charismatic, amazing villain, yeah, the story definitely leans toward, we want that. When we have all these moments with this field trip, with all of these side romances that were completely unnecessary, yeah, it just didn't work for me. It got too mashed up, it didn't gel well. I went from having a great time to, okay, nobody cares, let's move on. So I really wanted to love Far From Home because the good aspects are great in this movie, but tonally it just is too up and down that it doesn't quite hit the mark of greatness. Coming in at number 3, I have Shazam! I love Shazam. What a fun superhero movie. First of all, Zachary Levi is like inspired casting. I also think Asher Angel is really solid as well. And what works great is that those two together are believably the same person. Zachary Levi does such a wonderful job of really capturing that youth and that wonder in his performance of a teenage boy being in a big superhero body. Plus, Jack Dylan Grazer is amazing in the film. I think he has wonderful rapport with both Zachary Levi and Asher Angel. I was laughing consistently. I think it's a really funny film. It works great as an origin story, and I enjoyed what it had to say about family at large and what family means. Now, the villain, Mark Strong plays the villain well, but it just is so generic that it doesn't do much to add to our story overall. I definitely struggled when it came to understanding why Billy Batson was picked in the first place. I mean, it seemed like literally anybody in that household would have been a better choice. But, you know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, Shazam was one of the most fun theater experiences I had in 2019 and delivered almost everything I'm hoping for when I head into the theater for a comic book film. So, coming in at number 2, the runner-up position, I have Joker. Now, I'm going to admit, Joker is a film that I find hard to rate, that I find hard to rank, because in many ways, I feel conflicted about Joker. On the one hand, I think so much of it is amazing, particularly Joaquin Phoenix as our titular character is so good. What a performance. All of the accolades, all of the praise that he has been receiving is more than deserved. Plus, I really enjoy what the film has to say about income inequality, particularly, and what that leads to. That's a common theme in film, especially in 2019. But Joker handles it in a really entertaining but well-crafted way. And that third act, is amazing. Save for that very end. Could have done without it. But yeah, when we get full-on Joker, the movie just takes flight into another atmosphere. It's so good. The score is also fantastic. Enjoyed the dancing, of course, as it seems we all have. Those small moments with Joaquin as an actor and creative force are stellar. Plus, I did love the incorporation of Batman and his origin story into the film, which was not something I actually was anticipating all that much. However, my problems with Joker come in heavily when dealing with the idea of mental illness. And it comes from a place of just being tired, just kind of being over this negative depiction of mental illness, or this idea that these mass murderer types all have some sort of mental illness, which to a fact I guess they could. I'm definitely not somebody who thinks this film is like justifying violence or whatever. That argument never held any sort of credence with me. But I think it certainly justifies the actions in this film. And it gets me into a really muddled ground, which is both a positive and negative. Because I was right there with Joker. Like, you know what? It's time. Let's go. This whole town is terrible. Like everything was just overly bad. So I think there's so much to love about Joker, but there are just these underlying problems with that I have with it from a fundamental aspect of just the script itself. So that's why Joker couldn't break into #1, but I overall really enjoy the film. I think it was a pretty well-crafted movie, and that's why it gets all the way up to #2. So here we are, my pick for the best comic book film of 2019. We have Avengers Endgame. I know, such an original choice, right? But I can't deny, I just think it was the best. Right off the bat, it's able to accomplish something no other film in history has ever accomplished. And that is tying up over 10 years of storytelling in one film that is both sensical, that is satisfying, that gives the fans what they want, but also provides a good ending to this saga. And that's amazing. And they did it perfectly in this movie. Our performances in the film are fantastic. Robert Downey Jr. is stellar as Iron Man yet again. Tony Stark is probably the star of the film, and he delivers it so well. Chris Evans comes back with another really great performance with Captain America. And Chris Hemsworth gets to divulge into a different direction when it comes to Thor, and he does it fantastically well. Honestly, all of our actors deliver in this film. And the script, when it's character-driven, works so well. I think they really took these beloved characters down paths that just worked. Granted, I have some problem with Thor's depiction still. I know, right? But overall, I think the end point to all of these characters we've spent so much time with worked fantastically well. Plus, it gives us the big moments. It gives us those battles. And I can't think of anything that rivals that portal moment on the battlefield in the third act in cinema for 2019. And honestly, it's one of the best moments I've had in a theater ever. The CGI is great. I think it mostly handles time travel well. It explains itself well enough. It's also really funny. Honestly, I have nitpicks here, I have nitpicks there, but no film captured me like Avengers Endgame did. No comic book movie or otherwise for 2019. It hits you in all the feels, it makes you laugh, it makes you cheer. And this is kind of the epitome of what I'm hoping for from comic book film adaptations. It gave me everything I wanted and everything I didn't even know I needed. And for that, Avengers Endgame is my favorite comic book film of 2019. So that's it. That is my ranking. That's my list. What did you think of how I ranked the 10 comic book films of the year? And more importantly, share your own ranking in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. And if you liked this video, make sure to hit like down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on my latest videos. I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!